testing video art. And what I'm doing is taking a slow motion camera toss, and I'm going to use that as my video source and a way of explaining some of the ways of adjusting transforms of your basic transforms of video, and maybe some show you how to change like frame rate and aspect ratio and that kind of stuff, just as a little way of introducing everyone and getting on the same page with how to manipulate video in After Effects. Okay, so I'm just going to download the video as like a MP4 file, which will be fine. It's pretty low resolution, but it'll be fine enough for us. So, and we're going to call it, so do I already have it? No. Okay, so we'll call this Boomerang. Cool. So is it playing? Yes, it works. Cool. So I'm going to toss in After Effects. Here we are in After Effects, okay? And all our kind of content, our footage, and our compositions go here, okay? Down here is our kind of stack. It's called the stack of After Effects. And things are on top of each other, just like Photoshop layers. Just outlined a little bit different. That's normally on the right side of Photoshop, right? And then each layer can have its own effects, and then they can be composited onto each other in different ways. We'll get a little bit more into compositing next week, but that's just how you superimpose stuff, like how Peter Campos was superimposing one video of him cutting the three transitions, cutting the piece of paper from one angle and then coming through in the other one. That was two videos on top of each other, right? And so you're just there's a lot of film theory about like you're juxtaposing meanings and all that kind of stuff as well. We can get into the theory about it a little bit later, but that's just what it's called. And then over here we have all our effects, and there's tons and tons of effects, and that's what we're just going to play with. Like, we don't know what these things do, and our exercise is going to teach us what the effects of After Effects do. Okay, I am going to double click in here and choose the video file that's downloaded. Or I did it to I actually was organized and put it in my Dropbox for video art. There we go. And it was called Camera Toss. Actually, that was the old one that I had. So I have it twice. That's fine. Boom. And then we want to put it down here. We want to create what's called a composition. And there's a composition button right here, how to create a new composition. And these are the things we're talking about. This is frame rate, duration. This is the aspect ratio. This one, my default composition is an HD movie, right? 1920 by 1080. That's like the standard right now. We're still moving into 4K. It's still a long way before that becomes a thing. So I'm going to, that's the way a normal person would do things, but the quick way of doing it is if I drag this movie to the composition, it automatically makes a composition that is the exact aspect ratio, the actual duration of this video, and we've just done a quick shortcut, right? It looks like it has some black buffer on the side, and we don't want that, so I'm just going to kind of just stretch it, right? Just grab these little handles and make it fit the composition window. And what is the composition settings now? Control K, and I can see that it's 640 by 360. That's fine, because I'm probably going to make this into a GIF or something like that, so we don't want to make it too big a resolution, so the file size is small. It's about 17 seconds. We probably don't need 17 seconds. We probably need maybe only 10 seconds, so I can trim maybe the composition a little bit. All right, so let's just make it 10 seconds. Here we go. And everything else is fine. So I now have a composition that's 10 seconds long, right? And I only want to include the parts where it's spinning really well. So I think it's pretty much in motion there. I'm going to kind of I'm going to drag it and just make a start point right on here. There, it's always spinning. Great. So now I've trimmed the beginning and end, and I have a thing that's the right size, and we're ready to start playing around with stuff. Okay. So the thing that I want to play around with, and the thing that we're downloading an old version of After Effects for, is this wonderful thing called the brainstorming tool. Has anyone ever used this before? Know it existed? I've like spent hours with the brainstorming tool. It's a way of like making procedural content in After Effects. So I can take, let's do, I mean, just go through all of them. It doesn't matter. This like you can always delete these things. I'm going to take fractal noise. I just add a little noise, and I'm going to throw it on. It's replaced the video. The video's still there. We're going to composite it, right? We're going to blend it between the source material and this, okay? And on the upper left side, you see all the parameters, right? You can then go through these one by one and say, oh, that looks like shit. Oh, that looks like shit. Oh, this looks like shit. And this could be cool. But what we're going to do is we're going to cheat our way through it. And if I know what parameters I want to drive procedurally, I can select just those. But I want to drive this entire effect procedurally. So I'm going to do the brainstorming tool. And it's given me some looks that this effect can do. So I now know what this effect can do. I know the spectrum of kind of what it does between 25% upper or lower of this baseline setting, because it has a 25% randomness. But I can change this to 100% randomness and tilt the brainstorm. And now I'm looking at some interesting effects, right? But I've lost, and I even can see some of my old footage in here. I'm going to hit the play button. It'll give me generate a little bit of a preview, right? So one of the settings on the fractal thing is a blending mode, right? Which was set to normal at first, meaning it wasn't blending. It was just that effect. It had taken over. But now it's randomly choosing different blending modes, and we're getting those effects inside of the After Effects. So we're basically curating instead of creating kind of thing. We're just saying, this looks like the way I want it to go. Cool? I'm not liking any of these. Let's just go ahead and brainstorm at like, I don't know, 90% randomness and move on. Moving on. Let's see. Some of these are almost okay. We're going to add more to it, so it doesn't have to be perfect, right? We're going to start stacking a bunch of different effects. I want to go back some. I saw one I liked. We're just shopping. All right. Let's go ahead and, I like this thing. It's like really angular. So I have some options here. I can make it go full screen. I can save it to a new composition, right? So all these, if I like them but I don't want to use them right now, I could just be saving them. They're going to actually save as new compositions. I'm just generating new content. I could say, yes, this is the one. Or I could say, you know what? Actually continue to use these and let them influence the next ones I choose. More in this way, more in this way, more in this way. I'm going to go ahead and just choose this for right now, so I can show you guys the next thing. Okay, so here it is scrubbing through. Cool, but the fractal noise isn't moving, and that's kind of boring for me. The one thing I will choose is this evolution. The evolution is basically it evolves itself. All right, so let's do our first keyframe. Right here next to evolution, there's a keyframe, and we can let's reset this to 0. And it's not doing anything just yet. We'll put a keyframe, and then we'll jump to our very end. And let's say, like, it's a little wheel that goes around. I don't know if you guys can see, it's probably pretty small on the screen. And when it does 360, it's done one full revolution, right? So let's just, instead of doing it the long way, let's just say, let's start at 0, add a keyframe. Did we do that already? Boom. And then let's move it to, like, 3 full revolutions. Now if I come down here to this camera toss and I twirl it down, we have 3 different components here. I don't care about audio for this piece, so we're basically working with what I said, transform. Anyone who's done basic creative coding knows you have position, scale, rotation, right? That's called a transform. I can rotate this image if I want to. I can scale it bigger or smaller. We're not going to go into that just for today. We're just working with effects. And under effects, I have my fractal noise. And then I have all the things right here and up here. What's the shortcut here is if I just type in U, it just shows me the things I've keyframed, right? So there I'm keeping it nice and condensed, so it's easier for me to navigate. And I can see that, yes, my numbers are going up as I do it. Cool, so if I hit spacebar, I get a little preview. And it's not so interesting so far, so let's start stacking effects. I've done this a few times. In fact, I made some really cool ones on Sunday. I can show you, but I like to use Colorize or Colorama. So again, I just was going through all the effects and just seeing which ones looked good, and then toss it on here, and now it's on top. And do I want to brainstorm with fractal noise? No, I want to brainstorm with Colorama, so I'm only going to select it. Let's bring it back up procedurally, make some new content. All right, so we're at 25%. Let's do a lot of randomness and find a color palette we want. We're not doing a, let's see. There we go. Let's go in this direction. All right, include the next one. I'm liking this, actually. This is looking pretty cool. Let's go this way. This has some good contrast. Let's go for it. And let's go ahead and say yes. There we go. So now we have colorized content, all starting from the texture of the video that we got from the internet. Cool. And let's go classic VJ. I mean, some people make fun of me for this one, but let's turn it into a kaleidoscope. Drag it on there, and just drive kaleidoscope. But I could select all three of them and just start doing crazy stuff again. I can copy and paste this composition, and I could just start making all these little kind of crazy VJ loops that just kind of blend into each other, right? So let's brainstorm again. Cool. It's definitely better when it does it less, I think. It's either like do it a little bit or do it a whole bunch, right? Let's do this guy. But now I'm thinking this is a little monochromatic, so let's do Colorama again. Right? So I'm just messing around with effects until I find something I like. And that's all I'm asking you guys to do, is just get comfortable with the interface of After Effects and fuck around. So let's do that. And there we go. That has the same color palette, but it's got a little bit more diversity in there. And now I've made a cool little texture, right? So we're making wallpaper. Right? And so now I know what these different parameters do. If I start looking at what it's changing, I can say, oh, okay, and I can start learning. So that's kind of all I wanted to do today, was just kind of get into here, and so you guys can start seeing video, see that, oh, well, this is, maybe this is too big, maybe I want to do a different aspect ratio, maybe I have a screen that I know what the size is of it, and it's not 640 by 360. I can manually adjust that and then size the content to fit into that window. It's not 640 by 360, it's which is a HD aspect ratio, it's 1.777777. I can make it a SD, which would be 640 by 480. Like, that's how what our CRT walls would be. So we say it's 640 by 480. And now it's like a different aspect ratio, and I just take these little things and move them around. Oops. So just kind of play with all this stuff and know that this is like probably the easiest way to surgically manipulate video to do the things we want it to do. So just for fun, let me see if I can I'm not going to select anything, and let's just do one more time and just randomize everything. Oh, it's even randomizing scale now because I scaled it. That's funny. And this is all based off of a little camera toss that I started off with, right? And I could have been saving different compositions as I went along. And maybe Fractal Noise doesn't do that much unique stuff, and I want to use other ones. But this is a good start for us. So let's go ahead and take this, and let's export it. All right. Let's select the composition and export. And it's going to take us into Adobe Media Encoder. And this is the other thing to address today, is kind of like codecs. Oh, did I not install Media Encoder on this computer? This is the problem with using a different computer for testing with. Let's see. It takes so long to install Adobe stuff. We just do render queue. Okay. Not as bad. That's fine. Let's just tell it where to save to. And let's do a this is video art. Toss. And then I want to make it like an MP4. And I think that's what this doesn't do. Yeah. I have to do a media encoder for MP4, that's why I don't do it, but I don't care about audio anymore. Alright, let's just go ahead and render that out. That's a wonderful sound. I didn't have this oh, well, it says I do have it. We'll do that later. So, we have our video file, demos, and then, how do you guys like making, do you guys make GIFs in after Photoshop? Anyone do that way? You just like do online conversion? Do you guys make GIFs? What is it what you guys do? No? I just made so many assumptions about the generation below me. I thought that's all I thought you guys like were born with this ability to make GIFs. This is like the tedious way. I'm sure there's like an online automatic converter stuff that I haven't looked at that probably gives you viruses and stuff. Yeah, like I'm sure there's like specialized tools that are really. This gives you the most granular control. You can just do it in Photoshop, right? So Photoshop can load video files. I know it loads MP4s. We'll hope that it does MOV files, which are kind of being deprecated these days. So open and I can't believe I'm teaching how to do a GIF. I feel like I'm Sarah Rothenberg. This is crazy. All right. Well, that wasn't what I wanted to open up at all. That is a cool video sculpture. I don't know if you guys saw our Slack icon. That's this guy right here. I went through a process. It was like like a reality TV show. One guy, one image won out as our icon for the class. I spent a lot of time on that. No, that's the thing. Where did I save it to? Demos. Camera toss. Open. You gonna do it? Cool. That's a relief. Sorry. So here we have a little Photoshop that does videos now, right? And we have our video here. And I just want to make it a GIF to put on my website, so I can just export it for the web. And then from the pull down over here, I have GIF as an option. And then it has different resolutions, right? Dither means blur. Let's go ahead and just use the highest one first. So it looks the best, but it is this is why I said lower resolution and keep it shorter. That's a 50 megabyte GIF. That's a little much. That's not that good. So that's the problem with it. It's a lossy format for sure. There we go. That's much smaller. We've lost a little bit of the resolution, but it's good enough for my website. I can also just make it smaller if I wanted to. Right, so it's just a little smaller, and that'll take it down considerably because you have to think about surface area. If you take something that's, and we can do the math later on, if you take something down 50%, you're actually taking it down to a quarter of its initial resolution, right? Half the size is actually just a quarter. You could fit 4 in it from before, so it's a fourth of the size it was before. And we're going to save that on our desktop because that's where GIFs go. Great. So anyway, this was just like a super quick overview of After Effects. We're going to spend more time with that, getting into masking and doing some other stuff. But I just wanted you guys to feel free to make mistakes and make them into happy accidents as we start learning it. Again, it's like $10 for After Effects or something for CS, whatever for the Creative Suite for Adobe. So you guys should just dive in and go ahead and get it for the class. And and as we're doing this stuff procedurally, feel free to actually manually adjust this stuff if you do know a setting that you're like, I really want it to look nice and not just be completely random. So feel free to adjust settings as you want. It's just a good way of parametrically generating some new content. So the idea for the homework would be show me some just in-camera stuff to show you're thinking creatively. Don't worry about getting a DSLR, just use your phone. and then spit out a couple of these different patterns, these little textures, because these are things we can start projecting onto walls and irregular surfaces and mesh warping and that kind of stuff. Cool. Does anyone have any questions about the homework or what I just did? No? No one's ever seen the brainstorm tool before? No? 2014 is the last version that they incorporated the brainstorming tool. Because they redid the code base for After Effects from scratch, and they didn't want to, for the next version, and they just didn't think enough people used it to warrant building a team just to keep that feature in. Yeah. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Yeah, so you have to install 2014 using the Creative Suite downloading tool. It still lets you have side by side. You can keep the most recent version and just keep the old version, just the brainstorming tool. I just think that's a little bit more fun way, like a messier way of teaching, and more unique way than just to like give you guys this does this and this does that. This is kind of more my philosophy of how I approach stuff. It's more procedurally. As anyone who takes Houdini workshops with me knows, this is how we do stuff. Yeah, procedurally. It was real magic. Cool. So anyway, so yeah, make sure you're on Slack. Make sure that we're gonna, even though I had planned on going to the field trip, it's too cold. Just jump on the subway and get the hell out of here and get home and turn on your heater. And we'll talk about more stuff next week when we reconvene here. And again, my office hours are on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I'm in that room next door, so feel free to stop by, sign up for that stuff. If you can't make that, if you work, if you have a scheduling conflict, I do Skype calls. Like, Slack me. Just Slack me. Don't email me. I Slack back immediately. Email, I'll sit on. It'll give me an anxiety attack. Like, just give me just Slack, and I'll respond immediately, and we can all just move on. I don't want you to wait on me. And yeah, we can just move forward. And again, this class, I'm giving you it's a survey class of a bunch of techniques, but you can really dive deep in every single week. Each week, I showed this to a friend of mine, he's like, each week of this syllabus could be its own class, right? So I'm just scratching the surface. I'm not making art. It's up to you guys to make your art for yourself. And the deeper you dive, I'm here to help you. I'm here to show you the tutorials that will take you on the way you want to go. It's up to you to curate your own experience in this classroom with how deep you want to dive. You want to do 3D, even though we're not going over to that much. I know 3D and I can show you 3D and I can teach you that. Just tell me what you want and I'll give it to you, and we can like really make the stuff you want to make out of the class. Cool? So it's a little bit of self-directed independent study with a lot of like hardware and like mechanical stuff help from me. And then you guys get to make what you want to make. Cool? All right. Stay warm out there.